What if the home you've spent decades in suddenly became the source of a tax you never expected? Imagine waking up one morning and thinking, am I going to pay this every year? For many long-time homeowners, especially those who've seen their property value soar, that question is no longer hypothetical. In this video, we'll explore a proposal that could reshape how high-value homes are taxed and the ripple effects it might trigger. Stick around, because we'll walk through who could be affected, why the timing matters, and what the hidden in plain sight consequences might be. For decades, many homeowners have quietly built up what they assumed was a secure asset. A house in a good neighborhood, paid for or partly paid for, a place to retire, a base for family memories. But as the value of some homes has risen dramatically, a new challenge has emerged. Owning a high-value property may carry a cost beyond maintenance, insurance, and taxes you already know. Now, ideas are circulating in the UK about imposing an annual levy on homes above a certain threshold, a levy tied to value, not just purchase price or sale profit. This is the story of that idea, what it means, and why it matters. We begin with the numbers. According to recent reporting, the UK's Rachel Reeves, Chancellor, is seriously considering a tax which would apply to properties worth more than £2 million. Properties above that threshold might be charged a 1% annual levy on the amount above £2 million. In simple terms, if your home is valued at £3 million, you could face a bill of around £10,000 per year. Pause and reflect on that. A home you thought you owned free and clear could suddenly require an extra cost equivalent to tens of thousands of pounds a year. Why now? The government is reportedly facing a significant black hole in public finances. Some estimates for how much needs to be found run into tens of billions of pounds. A levy on very high-value homes is one of several options under discussion. But here's the gap. Proponents say it targets wealthy homeowners, yet critics warn many of the homes in scope are owned by retirees, people with large equity but low annual income, people who may struggle to pay an extra tax year after year. Let's pause. What would this actually mean for someone who has lived in their home for decades? Imagine you bought in a popular area when prices were modest, raised your family, paid off a large chunk of mortgage, and now find yourself in a property worth several millions. You may feel secure, but that value doesn't automatically translate into cash. If a new levy kicks in, you may face a choice. Pay the tax, sell part of your investment, or downsize. This emotional dimension is underreported. Some homeowners describe their house not just as an asset, but as home, as memory, as legacy. Now the sense of security could shift. Let's examine who is in the crosshairs. One piece of analysis suggests that about 80% of homes worth more than £2 million are located in London and the Southeast. So while the threshold is national, the impact is likely concentrated in regions with high property values. And that raises questions of fairness, regional equity, and unintended effects. Now, let's rewind a little and place the proposal in historical context. The idea of a so-called mansion tax has been around the UK for over a decade. Previous versions considered annual levies on homes above various high-value thresholds. So this is not entirely new, but the current proposal is being floated in a very different economic climate. High interest rates, stretched public finances, and an uncertain property market. That brings us to an important question. What is the likely effect on the housing market and on people's decisions to buy, sell, or stay put? Several property industry voices warn the mere suggestion of an annual tax is already causing hesitation. For example, brokers in London report that buyers and sellers are holding off, awaiting clarity on whether the levy will materialize. If buying slows, development may slow, and housing market dynamics could change. At this stage, you might wonder, will this tax apply only to ultra-luxury homes, or will the definition creep down? That's a key point. Right now, the threshold is reported as £2 million. But thresholds, exemptions, valuations, definitions of owner-occupied versus investment property all matter. Without clarity, The term million-pound property can hide much diversity. Some £2 million homes may be apartments, second homes, or occupied by people whose income is modest. The lack of detail creates uncertainty. And uncertainty in tax policy often leads to cautious behavior. Let's pause for just a moment. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button now to stay informed about major economic and policy changes that could affect your personal finances and homeownership. We post regular updates and explainers so you can stay ahead of the curve. Returning to the story, another key concern is the liquidity mismatch, the gap between the value of an asset, your home, and the cash you have. Many older homeowners are asset-rich, cash-poor. They may owe little mortgage, but their house value doesn't necessarily provide easy annual income for a new tax payment. Analysts warn that a levy like this could force downsizing decisions for people not anticipating them. On the flip side, proponents say, if your home is worth several millions, perhaps it's reasonable you contribute more towards public services. They argue this would be a progressive measure, splitting extra cost across those who benefit from exceptional asset appreciation. The tension between those two frames, ability to pay versus fairness of asset taxation, plays out in the political narrative. Let's now unravel several possible scenarios of how this tax could evolve, each with its own consequences. Scenario A, straight 1% levy on value above £2 million. A homeowner in London owns a £3 million property. They pay about £10,000 per year. Over 10 years, that's £100,000. If the property value rises further, the tax rises too. The homeowner either pays, borrows, sells, or seeks tax relief. Scenario B, wider threshold, exemptions for older homeowners. Government sets threshold at £3 million or exempts those over age 65. That narrows the impact, but it may reduce revenue and could be seen as less equitable. Scenario C, tax leads to behavioral change. Some homeowners sell or downsize. Some buyers hold back, slowing the market. Developers delay projects. The result, unintended slowdown in housing market activity. Already evidence suggests market participants are pausing. Scenario D, tax expands or evolves into broader property wealth tax. The levy might later be extended to lower thresholds or include other assets, second homes, overseas owners. That raises political risk and complexity. Throughout each scenario, the question repeats, is the tax paying for itself? Economists caution that the levy may not raise enough to cover the budget gap the government faces. For example, the think tank analysis says the tax would not raise anywhere near enough to fill the entire hole. This raises further questions. If a narrow tax is introduced, will it achieve the desired revenue? Or will it simply shift burdens, slow activity, and create complexity? Let's bring in a human angle again. For a retired homeowner, you may have paid off the property, or nearly so. You've budgeted for retirement expenses, maybe travel, maybe helping family, maybe one day moving to a smaller home. Suddenly you see a new line in your budget, annual levy £10,000. That is a shock. It prompts questions. Do I sell? Do I borrow? Do I move? These are emotional decisions, not just financial ones. And policies like this often force decisions under pressure, not under ideal conditions. Public debate tends to focus on headline numbers, but the personal stories lie in the middle. One homeowner interviewed said the discussion itself is distressing. The home is their safe place. From a narrative standpoint, three key themes arise: equity, security, and predictability. Equity. Is it fair that a high-value home owner pays more? Security. Does a decades-owned home feel safe if policy can shift around it? Predictability. How can homeowners plan when valuations, thresholds, and tax rules may change? Each of those themes resonates emotionally. That's why this issue is compelling and why it draws attention. Repetition helps retention. Earlier we said the threshold under discussion is £2 million and the levy is about 1%. Repeat, £2 million threshold, 1% above that. We mentioned many properties in London and the Southeast would likely be affected, around 80%. We highlighted older homeowners and asset-rich, but cash-poor individuals as a potentially affected group. These repeated points anchor the viewer's memory. Now let's consider what happens next. The government is expected to announce its budget in November. Until then, these ideas remain proposals, not law. That means markets, homeowners, agents are all in a state of anticipation. Some buyers are holding off. Some sellers are reducing asking prices to ensure a sale ahead of possible change. As a viewer or homeowner, you should ask, how will I be affected? What's the timeline? What exemptions will apply? Will the value be reassessed each year? Will mortgage interest rates, inflation, or other costs amplify the effect? At the same time, this proposal raises broader questions about how we tax property, wealth, and housing in the 21st century. Many experts argue the UK's current system, with outdated valuations for council tax bands, complicated property taxes, and huge variation regionally, is due for reform. The mansion tax idea may be a piece of a bigger puzzle, not the whole solution. As we near the end of our journey, let's revisit the key takeaways and tie them into practical guidance. The tax under discussion is not final. No law passed yet. It is likely to target homes worth more than £2 million, with something like a 1% annual levy on the portion above that threshold. Most affected homes are likely in London and the Southeast because of concentration of high-value properties. Older homeowners whose wealth is tied up in property rather than income, may be especially vulnerable. The mere threat of the tax is already affecting behavior in the housing market. Fewer transactions, more caution. Whether the tax raises enough to justify its economic impacts is debated. Many say it will raise some revenue, but not fix the entire budget shortfall. For homeowners, this is not just a number. It's about whether you stay put, sell, downsize, borrow, or restructure. For observers and policymakers, this is part of a larger discussion on housing, wealth, fairness, markets, and economic growth. If you own or plan to buy a high-value home, now is the time to seek clarity, talk to advisors, monitor official announcements, and consider how changes might affect you personally. Before I wrap up, regardless of one's personal view, the most important thing is clarity and planning. If you're a homeowner who thinks you might fall into the affected bracket, or if you're advising someone who is, keep an eye on the budget announcement, monitor the threshold, ask, will there be exemptions? Will valuations be fixed or dynamic? Will reliefs for older homeowners be introduced? Will the tax apply to second homes or only principal residences? In closing, this is a story of how a long-held assumption, my home is mine and safe, is being challenged by new fiscal realities. A homeowner's sense of security can be shaken when policy shifts happen around them. And that's why this topic matters, not just to the wealthy few, but to anyone who cares about how property, tax, and public services intersect in modern Britain. Thanks very much for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, please like the video, comment with your thoughts or questions below, and if you haven't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future deep dives into major policy changes that affect everyday life. I'll see you in the next one.